Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Wednesday. It's July 22nd. This will be our chart lesson for today. And you could look at today a couple of different ways. No matter how you look at it, it's a range day. Um, Personally, I played the flat blue horizontal range until we bounced here because that's what really confirmed. You didn't confirm that brown trend line until here. So the brown trend line really didn't help you except for this one trade. It might have helped you understand why prices pushed a little higher these last couple of times um, before, and we didn't get as much resistance off the highs here. But either way you look at it, look at the EMA. It looks like a roller coaster. Look how prices are above it, below it, above it, below it, above it, below it, above it, below it, above it. You got a little trend up, and then you got a little trend down, and they're all below it. And then, but for the most part, it looks like a roller coaster sideways on the chart, and your prices are consistently trading above and below it. That's a range day. When you see that, that's a range day. Now some of these trends are pretty strong, and they're strong enough to trade them. So that's fine. If you get a trend that strong, pay attention to it. But let's back out here and we'll talk about the trades. Early on, we had this two-tier channel working down, and we just went reversed. I mean, there's no overshoot here. Actually, it's possible there was. This might have been more like so, and that does tend to fit better. And by that, you get an overshoot. And a lot of times when you get an overshoot, you don't get a retest. It just prices just go the other way. And so that would explain that. I probably was off a little bit earlier, and that does look much better. And you can see what's going on there, why this was finding resistance off that EMA. And then we got a little overshoot. So it doesn't really change the trend line. And I mean, this is early morning, so you wouldn't be trading this anyway. But the only problem was you might have been thinking, hey, we may make a retest of the low here early on in this 7 o'clock to 8:30 hour. So that would be the only effect it would probably have on you. But by that time, you already had this big trend working up. And then 7 o'clock comes right in here while we're just making a close outside. And that's why I marked this long. You really got a first entry and a second entry. It's a little congestive looking, but you got plenty of room to get out there. So I like going long. Comes back, and it's pretty obvious we're going sideways. You get a little failed break lower. You don't want to enter there because this is your signal bar, and that's just an inside bar. You get a higher low here, but again, not a very good signal bar right into the highs, but it pushes through and pulls back and tests that breakout area right there and gives you a failed second entry short and a nice bullish bar. And I would look for a possible measured move up from right there, like so. We don't quite get it, but needless to say, we still had a nice trend working that direction. What happened was we hit this resistance up here and turned down. But that's a failed second entry long, a nice little trap because a lot of people probably trying to fade that. Or just remember when you trade up into something like this, you don't want to just trade a breakout. You want to at least get a lower high or something because you may, and you got to be careful on trading a breakout pullback. Normally I'd say you may not want to trade that, but to get a trap on that is pretty good. And we're just working higher, and you're getting too far away from the EMA till finally you get a little break outside and you bounce off the EMA and get that bullish bar. And we still got plenty of room on the measured move, plenty of room back to the top. It wouldn't take but a tick or two to get a new high here. You may not have even got in this trade because it gaps over. Notice it didn't. Notice there's no overlap between those two bars. It closed on its high, then opened on its low and kept going. You might could have got in with a limit order. I don't know. Your chart might have been just slightly different. It might have been a chance. Well, we run up here and we make two legs up. We make one more little push. It traps, and this breaks higher and turns down. You might trade this. I didn't mark it. It's a little aggressive right there, but you might trade that trade. I'll mark it green. Then we come down here and we're just kind of chopping sideways, and notice you got two legs there, but those two legs are one leg. And then you make this correction, and then you get another leg down with a couple of swings in it too. So there's a two-legged correction, but both legs have two legs in them too. And I had that conversation in a couple of spots on today's chart with people, and somebody says, hey, I got this trend line working up, I get to break the new high, so now I'm looking for a reversal, and suddenly it's still going the same direction. Well, you got to look at the big picture. The big picture is a range here. We just came off actually it's a trend, it's really the brown trend channel, but you may not have had that yet, but it bounces off the blue line down here on a range day on what's looking like a range. So where's it probably going next? Back to the highs. And so you would expect this to test these highs at a minimum, and it makes a little failed breakout, and then we're headed the other direction. So where are we headed now? Back down to the support area. I was looking for it to come to the blue line, but when it bounces here, then that really confirms the brown line, and that this trend line is probably correct, and now we're headed back to the upper side. And so you'd have been prepared for this one to go a little further. So if you caught a runner here, by all means, don't exit right here. Look to exit up here. I mean, obviously, if it turns down here, you might exit. But if it just keeps going, don't exit just because you're getting there. Wait to see what happens, and I would exit right before this line. Because now we have a little more information that the brown channel's in play, not the blue sideways. I mean, it didn't matter. You could play to either one of them. They still worked out about the same. Prices are still going from support to resistance to support to resistance. So anyway, I like going long here on this little failed break lower because this looks like a little range. You don't really have this confirmed yet. It didn't confirm this downtrend line till right here. And this is a higher low after a breakout, so we may go all the way back and test the highs again. We don't. We make another lower high and then a lower high, and then the bottom falls out. There's no setup here. This is your signal bar. You can only enter one tick above or below the signal bar, and the signal bar always makes the highest point in the swing. So that's your signal bar. It's too bullish. Yeah, you miss a good trade, but that's the way it works. Next time you try to enter there, you'll get burned. So then we bounce, and it's just a shame we don't really get an entry all the way down. There's a possibility here. Notice that little trend working up. You get a close outside. We try to make a new high, but we don't quite get there, and we're not back to the trend line. You're just kind of in the middle of no man's land. That was a pretty strong move down, so you might expect another leg just like it. You can see there we got almost a perfect measured move there. We missed it by a tick or so. But you just got to be careful getting short in the middle. If you'd had this brown channel, there's a midline there. But if you didn't have that on there, which you probably wouldn't at this time, some of you did. If you did have it, that's great. Good eye. Then you could probably go short there. But the way it is right now, if you're just playing this channel, you can't go short there. And personally, I was playing this channel. So it runs down here and it bounces off these lows, support right there. So you might go long there. Again, you're better off to wait on a higher low, but you're a long way away from the EMA. This is support down here. So you might go long right there. If you do, you catch a runner on this and you can ride this all the way up. Runs up, and a couple of people tried to go short here off of this trend line. Notice that that's just congestion. Yeah, there's a lower high right there, but look, you got 1, 2, 3, 4 bars stacked up. This one has no body whatsoever. This one has a tiny body. All of them have a lot of stems. And then if you'd have gone short there, then you just see the congestion, because now you get another one that stacks up next to it. Don't enter in that, especially outside the trend line. And yeah, you could count that as a second entry, but does that look like two legs to anybody? This is one leg up. That's it. There's one leg up. I didn't even a correction of much. It's just a little sideways action, and that's what's going on. This is still strong, and that's your correction, and it's the market's so strong it can't even correct. A lot of traders entered long down here, and they know that there's resistance up here, so they're exiting. But really, if you got the midline, you can see it just takes a minute to get through that midline. Prices aren't really correcting here. They're just hanging around. There's no rejection right there. You want to see rejection off that trend line. We're just hanging around there. Runs over here. On this side, pulls back and tests the EMA and that midline, and that's what rejection looks like. Look at it go. Prices aren't hanging around down here. They bounce and they go. And notice the two legs back. That's technically by the count, there's a first entry right there and then a little second entry right there, but you can clearly see there's two legs back. Looks just like a two-legged second entry. Take that trade if you can get in it. I actually played this short. I think I forgot to talk about that. Notice we get the close outside. We make a new high, and then we make a lower high. Fairly bearish bar. I marked this green. You figure prices are probably going to come back to the EMA there at a minimum. So you might take that trade. It's a little aggressive. If you saw the brown channel, you probably definitely don't want to take it. You're better off to take this long. And a lot of times it's really hard to go short and then switch right into a long. So you've been better off to stay with the trend, knowing that this is a trend day, a range day, and we're probably still going higher yet. And that's what happens. Then you pull back first entry, second entry, it fails. Look how much room back to the EMA. That's almost a no-brainer right there. And then we kind of work sideways, get a little correction. And then you get a second entry short here. Notice that low, first entry, second entry. There's actually a second entry when it broke below that bar. That bar's too bullish. But you might let it break below this bar and drop a limit order back up in here. If you got too far, you didn't make it. Or you could have just used a stop. We're probably headed to the other side. So whether you saw the channel or the flat support, that's where you got to figure we're headed. Because what do prices do? They go back and forth between support and resistance. So that's how we know pretty much where prices are going. Of course, we get the third touch and confirmation of this brown line, finally. It's at 1 o'clock, the day's almost gone. But still, from this point on, you know this channel's right. You pretty much could already know based on the midlines once we got out into here in the late morning, early afternoon. But we're trading up. Too much congestion here. It's hard to know what's going on. But then we push higher. And you get another little two leg. This looks almost like this. It's a little smaller pattern. Two legs back. You can clearly see we move down, push up, move back. That's two legs back to the EMA and the trend line. It confirms that trend line. Nice bullish bar. I like going long right there. That turns out to be another runner, a nice trade. That takes you into 2 o'clock. But you could have continued to manage this all the way back up to at least to here. That's probably where I would have exited. So you'd have probably been done by 220 or so. But there weren't a lot of trades today. And this trade, even though this was not super clear support and resistance, this was a little easier than normal. And really, I told somebody else, what you have to do here, no matter how you trade this, whether you use the brown channel, the blue flat range, or you didn't have either one of them, you just make sure you use this short-term stuff, because that's really what you're trading off of. This stuff just gives you an idea where prices are maybe going. Because as you can see, this brown channel, there's only one trade here, and it's an iffy one. That's it. So it's not like it's giving you, this trend's giving you a lot of trades. Now, having this brown one really would have helped you with some of these bounces. You would have understood what they were. So that would have been rather important to see that. It would have helped. So, but anyway, I think that's about it for today. We'll come back tomorrow, and we'll wrap up our week. since no chart lessons on Fridays now. But just trying to think if there's anything else. Measured move. Look for that measured move. Measured move up. You don't quite make it. You might have measured this one like this too. And that gives you a perfect measured move, actually. That's probably more like it. But usually the double legs back is the center of the pattern. But you can clearly see that looks like one leg and a little bit of a correction. And if you measure that one, perfect measured move there too. But I'd still measure it the other way as well. Just in case if we kept going higher, that would have been my next target right there. So, but I always use those measured legs. That'll really help you and kind of give you a target to shoot for. And obviously we couldn't make either of these because we couldn't get through the resistance up here. And so that's telling you something. When you're not making these targets, that's telling you something. There's some reason, there's some kind of resistance across here somewhere. And early on it just looked like it was range resistance, but it's a little bit of a channel up there. It's not much of a channel, it's really just more, and I mean, and make sure you understand this, all a slanted, all that trend channel is just a slanted, it's the same thing as a range going sideways with support and resistance, just slanted. They're the exact same patterns and prices just go from one side to the other. Started on the high side and went to the low, went back to the high, went all the way down here to the low, went back to the high, then we corrected a little bit and kept going higher. So just remember that. They're the same patterns. One of them just is trending and one of them is just flat, and you trade them a little differently. So keep that in mind. But I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again tomorrow to wrap up our week. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.